FTI community, I am so fucking excited for this one. This is the best way to follow up after Stefano's Creator of the Week last week, because I am joined by one of my closest friends on planet Earth. I have known this man for 6 years, which is crazy to say it's been 6 years. He is an incredible MC, writer, performer. He has a very rich discography that is available across multiple outlets, including streaming, physical media such as vinyl and cassette. There is a Lost Tapes relaunch concert performance from him elsewhere, but we won't talk about that right now. Speaking of the relaunch concert, he performed at the relaunch concert this past November and most recently opened for the legendary hip-hop duo Blue and Exile in Kitchener. Upcoming on July 11th, he has a 10-track EP on July 11th with Scully titled Glorious Technicolour. And most importantly, I'm hitting this one to home, one of my absolute closest friends on planet Earth. And this is a session that Donald will absolutely love from front to back. I am joined by Mr. Emerson Corleone, brother. How are you?
God damn, what an introduction. Wow, I am doing so great, man. Thank you so much for allowing me to join you here tonight. Shout out to FTI. Shout out to my man Donald.
My
Shout out
Donald!
to everybody listening. Shout out to Scully. We got a new project, as Matt was saying, Glorious Technicolour. It's coming soon. But yeah, wow, I'm honored to be here, FTI community. I love y'all. FTI is very close to my heart, and I'm honored by your kind words and lovely introduction. Appreciate you, man. You are the GOAT. So
you are the fucking
endless,
goat.
endless love for you.
I had such a fun time. Well, honestly, I do with all of them planning those introductions because it's like as Johan said, it's like a UFC fighter introduction. Like as they're walking down the aisle, and you just get like all like these accomplishments and everything. And then ever since Johan said like, "Yo, that's what it's like," I'm like, "That's what it's gonna be now." Like
that's what that felt like. Yo, I did feel like you were like a WWE announcer. You really channeled that inner fandom there and brought that to life, yo. That's crazy. No, seriously, I'm honored though. That was beautifully said. Beautiful words. I'm humbled and honored. Thank you.
Fuck yeah. I am really excited for this because although we've been planning this for quite some time, the timing has really come at the perfect time because as of right now, next Friday, you drop Glorious Technicolour, which is you and I both called it like the next one after on 35mm, the successor rather. But what's also really cool is if you take it back to the very, very beginning, I would say almost everything you've released has been like by chapters. From your debut project Out to Lunch on 35mm, Inner Moonlight, which is still my number one, to Scotty in Paris, Violets and Furs, to the live experiences at Harmony Lunch, the relaunch concert, Blue and Exile, and everything else in between. Everything you've accomplished right now and in the past, well, I guess that's all accomplished in the past, and what you're looking forward to accomplishing as well. I describe it as like a very rich, incredible journey with all these significant chapters who have shaped you as a person, as a performer. But for those who don't know the man behind the microphone, and I'm not talking about this microphone, I'm talking about the other one, who is Emerson Corleone?
Oh, man. Well, my name's Emerson Corleone. You should just go by Emerson, but then I added the Corleone. I'm an MC. I'm a writer, a human being, member of the FTI community, music lover, movie lover. Yeah, so that's basically who I am, and AKA Aiden Hunt. If you know me in real life too, or yeah, and I'm a part of a musical collective called Directive Records. Shout out to my man C. Stone Leon. Shout out to French. They're based in Nova Scotia. And I'm also an affiliate of WCFR, One Crafted Fried Renditions. My man Scully, Naiyo, the mastermind Naiyo, Just, my boy Just. And yeah, and also recently a couple new members, Tatsuo and Jackson. So some really, really dope dudes. Very honored to be a part of some really cool musical collectives. We'll talk about that later, but that's Emerson Corleone for you. Yeah, and I consider you, Matt, to be one of my closest friends. And yeah, man, and I'm very, like I said, FTI is very important to me too. So being a member of the FTI community, I'm honored to be here.
Fuck yeah. How would you connect Aiden Hunt to Emerson Corleone? Like where do they differ, but also like where do they connect?
Oh, that's interesting because I really consider my musical alias to be, completely different from who I am as a person because I just make music for fun. It's just a hobby. And when I do it, I sort of adopt that alias and kind of create sort of a character, kind of like MF Doom did, who is a major influence on my music. One of my favorite artists of all time. But I mean, everything about myself is reflective in my music. But I add some flavors and different imagery and things that are kind of influenced by movies, pop culture, history, things that I just genuinely love. But yeah, it's sort of like a little bit of an alter ego, sort of a character that I adopt. But yeah, but I think within that comes my personal interests, which then are reflected within the music, within the lyrics, within the themes. So there's a very clear bridge between those two. Without trying to sound pretentious, because I am not trying to say, oh, I'm a completely different person when I make music. I mean, but because there's, but there's a part of me that's very different when I make music than versus who I am in real life. That's what I
What
meant.
what I really enjoy about like because I've seen it from legitimately 2019 at Harmony Lunch is just the way that you're able to like kind of like hone in on Emerson because at the time it was Emerson, but also keep the values and keep like the persona almost like a one of one reflection of the two because what you write about is like what you're most passionate about because there's a lot of clever wordplay in there. The beats that you choose when you're collaborating with Magic Beats, for example, they're very carefully curated. I find to make sure that they match your aesthetic, and especially because you're. I use the word honed in a lot, and I can't think of another word to use is the golden age of cinema because it's really captured what Emerson Corleone is when you're visually presenting a project. There are so many examples that we can pick out from a variety of songs that have these deep cut references. Like they can be referencing something you're passionate about with pop culture, with history, or maybe it's just something that's transpired in your life. And the cadence that you have when you perform these tracks live, or you're even playing them for the first time on Spotify, is really, really incredible. Where does the love of the craft come from? And like, who have been some early and current day inspirations that have really influenced it all?
Wow, that's a fantastic question. Because yeah, that's one of the things that's really fun about music is that, and one thing that I try to do to set myself apart is weave in my personal interest in there. And movies is obviously a huge one, and that's a huge reason why I connected to C Stone Leone is that he has a deep passion for films as well, and that his whole collective is based around that, and like we really bond over our love of movies, and music, of course, is the number one. No, and really, before I even started ever making hip hop music, I actually had played the bass, and I had fallen in love first with metal when I was a kid. Like I would listen to a lot of '80s metal, like Iron Maiden, Metallica, etc. Really got into music because of the Guitar Hero series,
Yes.
which is interesting. I remember because I listened to every episode of that you do of with your guests on FTI.
Okay.
Every in your studio I listened to, and I believe it was Hunter. Shout out to Hunter, Average James, who said that he also really, I believe it was him that said he got into making music too from Guitar Hero as well. And
Yes,
I feel
sir.
like in within that generation, that I was included in and that Hunter was a part of and that you were part of, Guitar Hero had such a huge influence on an up and coming generation of music lovers. And I was among that demographic. And like, I really got into music because of Guitar Hero. But yeah, through high school, I really got into rock and really dove into blues too. That was a huge genre of mine. But I really fell in love with hip hop in the early days of high school, but didn't really start rapping until the end of high school, early university days. So I was kind of like a late bloomer. But in the early days, I think really like Wu Tang is the foundation of where everything started. The
Yes.
greatest, obviously the greatest hip hop group of all time, at least in my opinion. Um, and they're really the foundation for everything that I love about the genre. Enter the 36 Chambers, absolute staple of the genre. That really was one of the first records I ever really loved in high school. Dr. Dre, The Chronic, a lot of those albums, but Wu Tang was really the foundation. That's really like everything started the Woo, and then that led to, West Side Gun, that led to Rock Marcy, that led to everybody. But it's all started the Woo, and I would have to crown them as my earliest influence for sure. Number one biggest influence. Absolutely.
How did it go with tying in that golden age of cinema aesthetic, like kind of like the covers of like
Mm,
on 35 millimeter or even the upcoming Inglorious Technicolor?
that's a really interesting question. So part of it was a lot of it was my father's influence, is that I grew up around my dad, who is hands down, I'm not even trying to be biased from the fact that he's my father, but he is the biggest lover of film that I know personally. Like
I
he
agree.
he loves movies, man. Like has an encyclopedic mind when it comes to films. And I grew up, him being my father, I grew up around film. So I was watching movies at a young age, fell in love with movies at a young age. And, I just felt like I wanted to bring some of that love of film within to the music somehow. And that's how
Yes.
the concept for On 35 millimeter came about. It was like, well, we can kind of present it like, it was less about being like, yo, the album's like a movie. It wasn't really like that. It was more like, let's incorporate kind of, like a cool, like film noir theme. And, my dad's hugely into, detective novels, pulp novels, um, crime dramas, things like that. And he's also a gifted artist too. So I talked to him about the concept. I didn't even quite remember how the idea came about to call it On 35 millimeter. I just love that concept of, going to a theater and seeing a film on 35 millimeter. I have seen one movie on 35 millimeter on the waterfront with my girlfriend Zaria. Shout out to Zaria.
Yes. I remember when you told me about that as
Yeah.
well. I
Yeah.
uh
So
I agree
yeah.
entirely. Andrew is such not only an intelligent person in his own right, but like he is a
Yeah.
very gifted visual artist and graphic
Oh yeah, because
designer too.
he did the covers for On 35 millimeter and for my next project with Scully and Glorious Technicolor.
What I really enjoy about your dad's visual art is he will create a master, but he'll also create like fun little like side ones that could like see a cassette, could see the background of like sorry, the backside of like a CD or a vinyl or a cassette. Like he really
Yeah,
takes your idea, but he
yeah,
amplifies it to give you like five covers that you can use across multiple
yeah.
outlets.
It's unreal, and so I feel truly blessed. So shout out to my pops, man. I feel truly blessed that he's able to execute those visions. Because what I tell him is like, well, the idea is let's make it look more like one of those old crime novels, or like an old movie from the 40s, as
Yes.
opposed to like a rap record. That's kind of what we go for, and it's just the aesthetic and the homage to that era. And I like that concept within the music, and just kind of blending those two just seems dope.
What I really want to talk to you about, because I don't know if we've talked about it a lot ever, is when you're on your own journey and you're doing things day by day. Jeremy, the Iron Child, said it the best to me at the relaunch concert: is you don't know how far you've come because you're always focused on the future and not where your feet are planted. He said it,
Right.
mind you, very loud, and like he made sure I understood it. Like
Yeah,
it
shout
got
out to
it.
Jeremy,
Shout out
man.
to Jeremy. It got
What a
it through
guy.
because that's my motto now.
For real.
Break down where the song creation process came from when it was really just you and not knowing like a C Stone and Magic Beats and Nio and all of them. And then kind of break down like the collaboration process when beginning a new project.
Ooh, you know, honestly, it was rough in the early days because for a number of reasons. Number one, you start out not knowing really practically anybody, unless you're lucky enough to have some connections early on. Early on, pardon me. Like if you meet some friends that are into it, like I said, I kind of got into it a little bit later, and I had a sound that I wanted to go for, and a lot of people that I knew weren't really going for that time. A couple friends were, and like we'd make songs here and there, and just have fun with it. And I don't know, man. Like it was really rough because you'd have to dig on YouTube and you'd have to dig on BeatStars and try to meet people. And then what I learned about is the importance of networking and supporting other people. And I feel like that's part of the philosophy of FTI. and what's at the
Yeah.
heart of FTI, which makes FTI so amazing. And that's really, truly the greatest thing that you could possibly do for yourself early on, because I've been so fortunate to meet so many great people that I've had the opportunity to collaborate with. Um, and I continue to meet new people, and it's really, really wonderful, man. And it's like, it's a beautiful thing. Like it's amazing time that we live in, that in which you can connect with people from across the world that share the same passion and love for whatever craft or whatever art form that you love as well. They're out there. And so it's really nice because without having those connections, you're going to be at ground zero, like I was in the early days of scavenging through YouTube and BeatStars. Because also, when you have a sound in mind for hip hop, you should, in the early days, you kind of want to nail down a lane. That was the hardest part for me too, was like, what lane am I going to do? Because I could rap fast too at one point. And like at one point, I was like, should I try to rap fast? And I didn't really know what pocket I was getting into. And like I had different influences at that time, but like Freddie Gibbs, for instance, who is still one of my favorite rappers, but like musically, he was a huge influence, and he had this really dope flow. Lord Infamous from 3 6 Mafia was another influence, and like I kind of wanted to try that flow, and I experimented with a couple different sounds until I kind of settled on the boom bap and the soul sound and the drumless sound, and that's really the lane in which I love. Not only do I feel the most comfortable on those beats, but that's the style of hip hop that I love the most.
Yes.
And so it just made sense that I would then gravitate towards that sound naturally.
And
So it was just a matter of nailing down my sound at first. I think that was the harder part of finding the beats, was like understanding, okay, what am I going to sound dope on? What am I going to sound comfortable on? What flows can I bring? Because it's awkward when you're first starting out, man. Like it's difficult to find pockets. It's difficult to construct flows at first. And that was a big challenge. It was just like, okay, let's find what BPM range should I look for? Like what type of samples, things like that. But now I feel as if I'm so confident because the people that I'm close with and are my friends are very like-minded in our tastes. And as a result, they make very similar musical ideas in which that I construct too, if that makes sense. The beats that Nio makes, man, like sometimes I'm just like, I don't even know how this guy came up with this shit, man. It's really one of my favorite, and Scully as well. Scully is also one of my favorite producers, man. But yeah, it's all about finding the sound. At first was difficult, building connections with people because I didn't really want to go through BeatStars and all this. I want to pay producers, obviously. I'm not saying, oh, I don't want to pay producers, but I'm saying I want to build genuine connections with producers, be friends, and collaborate as a team, as friends and equals, as opposed to just being people that it's just I'm just conducting business with them through a
yep,
website. I
I
don't really want
agree.
that, and it's not organic that way at all. And I feel like the collaborative process is truly the heart and soul of everything that I do. And so without that, I'm nothing. Right. Well,
Live.
I'm not saying I'm nothing. I'm not trying to sell
Yeah,
myself
yeah.
short. Like I can still rap, but I mean, like I'm not going to be doing any of this without the people that I do it with. Like that's at the end of the day, it's all about a team as far
Yes.
as I'm concerned.
I
For real.
uh I have this really, I guess it's a philosophy about working with strangers for like a transactional collaboration versus like a driven, you want to see each other succeed collaboration.
Right.
And I think I still need to work on what I'm trying to get across because it's really hard. But like I almost see transactional like BeatStars per se uh collaborations as kind of like getting a haircut, like where it takes like really one and done, and that's your judgment about if you really will use that producer again, or if you only had one beat that was really honed in on what you like doing, or if you find a barber and after 4 or 5 haircuts he's really honed in, or not honed in, tuned in to your style, to like what you look good doing.
Exactly.
And I find that with everybody that you collaborate with, you guys are, as you mentioned, like all in like similar, if not the exact same pockets, but you're also brutally honest with each other too when it comes to like, yo, like that's really great for your style. I can't see myself getting on that per se, but that definitely suits the exact presentation that you bring.
Oh, I couldn't agree more with that. I couldn't agree more with that because there's definitely been beats too that have been they're either like too fast, like the BPM's too fast for me, or there's like honestly these days it's crazy because like some days I honestly have a harder time rapping over drums. Like I know that's gonna sound very contradictory because I'm a rapper and I'm supposed to be rapping on I am rapping on drums, but I rap on loops and soul beats and drumless shit a lot.
Yes.
That's the one thing I actually haven't made a boom bap track in a long time. Like I actually just rap on soulless, drumless. No, they're not soulless. I promise you. No, I promise you, they're not soulless. That's fucking hilarious. No, drumless soul beat. Yeah, man, it's like it's all just about finding people that you have a chemistry with, and but that all comes down to taste, and really comes down to um, who your influences are, who you look up to musically, what you're trying to achieve as well. Because
Let's
some people are really in it for profit. Because I feel like the biggest issue that I had with BeatStars were contracts. I don't really want to deal with. I like I said, I want to pay producers. I want people to get paid. I want everybody to have a fair share. I want everybody to get a fair share of what everything. But I'm I'm at the level I'm at. I'm just kind of weary of a contract based on streams. Now I'm not even trying to achieve the highest number of streams possible, but a lot of these contracts on BeatStars were like, oh, well, you'd have to buy this lease, and this lease will grant you 20,000 streams. But if you go over that, you'd have to purchase this lease. And it's just a very complicated process in which I don't have the patience to deal with anymore, man. Like, yo, I'll hit you up. Let me buy a beat. All right, bet. What's your PayPal?
yes.
Done. I'm not trying to do any of that contract shit.
I remember when we were creating, I think it was Welcome Inside, or it was Welcome Inside or Celebration, and just the conversations I had with people that weren't even on either one of those projects were like, yeah, but like if you're doing it, like just know like this can only be streamed X amount of times before like you're really into like deep waters of buying more. And at the time, I was very realistic with them. I was like, I don't know if you think like Welcome Inside's gonna get a million streams overnight, or if this is just a fun community project. It's definitely the latter, but like given like these like
Yeah.
precautions almost made me feel like I was reading into like their insecurities and their self doubts to where
Mm,
I was just like, we really need to like make it clear like Welcome Inside was a community driven celebration of the different tastes and the different genres in the FTI community. But what I think is really neat, and it really goes into what's coming out next Friday, is the amount of artists on Inglorious Technicolor. Like you have truly an arsenal of performers, yes, but of just people you've worked with in the past, people that I'm not as tuned in with, but this is going to be the perfect opportunity for me to be in it, such as Mark Scorn, obviously very tuned in with him. Naiyo, Justice, Scully being the big one there too. This brings me back to the past years where I could have expected a new Emerson Corleone every single summer to kick off my summer. I still remember being up in Huntsville when On 35 millimeter dropped, and then the year later I was in my apartment for Inner Moonlight. I remember
so
where I was for each drop. With this being a very loose sequel or a strong sequel, depending on how you look at it, talk to the FTI community about Inglorious Technicolor. Like, what can we expect? Even more, like how it came to be, and like what the overall idea in mind was for it.
that's a really, really thoughtful question. I appreciate that. And I'm also very thankful for the fact that you tuned in for the drop of on 35 millimeter and you're still here tuning in.
Yes,
Man, I'm
sir.
truly like I can't express my gratitude enough. But yeah, Inglorious Technicolor, here we are. I label it as kind of a spiritual sequel to on 35 millimeter, so a very loose sequel, but it kind of continues on with that sort of movie theme, and it has the same sort of aesthetic. I feel as a whole project. Like you'll hear it and you'll understand what I mean, but we just the way that we incorporated samples and just the whole project and the way it's laid out, it kind of just felt like it was kind of channeling the energy that I had when I was making that project. I was just very excited. And really the project kind of started with my involvement with WCFR, with Scully, with Naiyo, with Just, with H Dave, like chilling. When I first met those guys, I met Dave, obviously, who introduced me to Nio and Scully and Just. So I was working at FYE, the record store, and Nio came in with H Dave, and I already knew H Dave, and he was rocking a Gangstar hoodie, and we got along right away because I was like, "That's a sick Gangstar hoodie," and boom, that's all it takes. I was like, "Damn, you're a Gangstar fan? Shit." And you knew Dave? Shit. All right. And so we became friends. You know, we made a project for Fine Specs. I love that project. It's one of my favorite joints I've made. And shout out to Nio. He's truly one of the most talented people, one of the hardest working people. But that's how I met Scully, who's just an incredible dude, amazing producer, Just as well, amazing rapper, and they're WCFR. And you know, they had a crib here in Guelph when they were students at the University of Guelph. They're no longer; they graduated, and then they all went back to their hometowns, their respective hometowns. But um, yeah, when they were here in Guelph, I would go over to their house and we'd make joints together. Like we would, you know, Naya would come up with some crazy beats, Scully would come up with crazy beats. We'd just chill out. We'd do some writing. We'd make some crazy spontaneous tracks. In fact, we're actually got, you know, we got a couple joints out. Uh, John Wick at the Met Gala, you know, and Coach Thibs. Those are out, you know, by the time that this drops.
Yes.
So, you know, I'm not saying I'm kind of speaking kind of in the future context, but by the time that this is out, in the present moment, it's not, but at the time this is out, those joints are out. And those are products of, those tracks are kind of a product of that time that we were chilling there. But that was really the foundation for it. And I was really impressed with all of their beats. And Scully and I had talked about doing a project together for a while, but really, I had kind of collected beats from him over time. Because one thing that I do is I'm a big beat hoarder. Like I like to hoard beats from producers I work with. Like shout out to my man MajickBeats. We made the project Ballots and First together. He's one of my favorite people, one of my favorite producers I work with. Like I have beats of his that, you know, I want to rap on one day that I have tucked away, and now I'm probably gonna use for future projects. And I have a few like on my Google Drive and shit. And same with Scully. Like one of the beats on here, New Spiritual Practice, he didn't even have the files for anymore, and I still do. It was like this is one of my favorite beats you've ever made. And he's like, I don't even have the files for that anymore. And I was like, well, I'm lucky I had the final product because I had saved it for so long, right? Because I've been keeping that beat because we're in a group chat and these guys just send beats all the time. And like, I'll be like, yo, I want to use that joint. I want to use that joint. But anyway, so Scully and I had talked about making a project. We'd actually made a couple tracks, and one of which I performed at the FTI show when I opened. And then we had Shoop and Average James. That was an unbelievable night, man. Truly my favorite night of the entire year last year. Truly my favorite performance I've ever done. It was
awesome.
An unbelievable, words can't even describe how great that was. But I performed one of the joints. It's called Cape Spear. But like I sent out to Mark Scorn, and like I had that. I had a couple of Lucy's kicking around. I'm like, yeah, bet these are going to be on the Skull EP. But it really kind of came to be when Nio and I linked up, and we started working on the WCFR group project. Now that's a whole other story. Now there's a WCFR album coming out that Nio has been curating for time. You know, he's been using Scully's beats. He's been using his beats. You know, there's a bunch of unbelievable beats on there. I'm on several tracks, but really like what came to be was I was like, yo, I really want to make this EP with Scully so we can have these as like joint albums that drop around the same time, you know? Yes. So I was like, let's do this CP, Scully. So I started while we were working on these tracks, and this is around the time that I opened for Blue in Exile, because Niall lives kind of far from me. You know, he lives like up in fucking Ottawa or some shit. And so he had to make quite he had quite a trek ahead of him to come down. So he came down. He stayed here for a couple nights, and we got Airbnb, and we made music, a bunch of tunes, and I recorded, you know, like 4 or 5 tracks, and I was like, all right, this is going to be the EP with Scully. And then I also did a bunch of collabs that are going to be on the WCFR. I'm on like 6 tracks, including one solo track, and including one solo track, which is one of my favorite joints I've ever made. It's called Major Briggs.
Okay.
Named after one of No, actually, not one of my number one favorite character from my favorite show, Twin Peaks. So anyway, there's a bunch of crazy joints, but it's like 20 tracks, insane shit. But this project kind of came out of that one, sort of,
Okay.
because I was also in my bag writing features for that, and I was like, I feels like that same. That's why I kind of felt like it was a spiritual sequel, because I felt like I had that same hunger and desire to make music like I had when I was making on 35 millimeter. So I'm like, okay, I want to make this project bigger though, than more than just like because before it was gonna be like 4 tracks. So I was like, well, let's make a few more joints, and so I ended up writing a few more tracks after Benny left, and then that's how it came to be, really. And then I was like, yeah, I really felt that same kind of hunger that I had at that time when I was making that first project, but I felt like, it was a new thing too, because stylistically speaking, the beats are quite different. Like on 35 millimeter had a quite a different sounds, whereas this is consistent. This is more thematic, I would say, because
Hmm.
I'm working with one producer, and that's I love. I think I love that aesthetic the most within the world of hip hop, is the classic MC and producer duo. You can't beat that in my book. Like it's the best, man.
Self-medicating, ran away from emotion. But baby girl insists and I'm gifted. Love vanished into gray mist after my shape shifted.
Very
As a
similar
project, yeah.
to Magic Beats with Violets and Furs, where you're really
Exactly.
tag teaming it. Like it's really like, as you said, like a producer, performer
Yeah.
duo. Would you say that Inglorious Technicolor is gonna kind of like be, I guess, very similar to how we had not like started the podcast, like a new chapter, or is it kind of like a taste for that upcoming like 20 track project coming out?
Mm, I think it's a continuation of the sound that I had going already, like on Violets and Furs and Refined Specs, like kind of the stripped back soul beats, and kind of more experimental stuff, or just straight up loops.
Yes.
I like a lot of stripped back stuff these days, and that's the stuff that I really love to rap on. Like even like Sunroof on the Trojan Horse too. My project with C Stone Leone, like we did the song Angels with Dirty Faces. Like that joint is literally just like a vocal sample and some vinyl crackle. It's like I rap on really stripped back, like straight to the point shit. And that's because a lot of one of my biggest influences, Brown Vocal, rest in peace, and he's truly one of my idols in music and life in general. Just as a human being, I think he's just an exemplary human being. I think he was a phenomenal person, and he had such a huge impact on me musically, and just his philosophy about life in general, and just who he was as a person. He had such a huge impact, and just the way that he would have these skeletal beats, though that's really has shaped my sound. And of course, Rock Marciano too is the same way, and that's my favorite rapper of all time. So I feel like this project's very much a continuation of that, because Scully's in that bag too.
Mhm.
And this project feels the most raw in a way, because a lot of these beats are like, the thing I love about Scully's beats is they're unapologetically raw and in your face at that. You know what I mean? Like he doesn't give a shit. Like there's vinyl crackle on the joints. You know what I mean? Like it's just they're presented that way, and it's supposed to be like sounding kind of dusty. Like there's a layer of dust on it. That's what I wanted though. That's the kind of sound that I want to go for. Is like these, uh, like I said, kind of skeletal stripped back soul loops. That's the sound that I love right now, and that's the bag that I'm in, and that's the style. And so I feel like Scully's really channeled that and exactly what I want to do. And there's a few beats on there that are among my favorite beats I've ever rapped on. Truly,
Fuck yeah.
he's a gifted producer, man. He's dope. He's got an amazing ear for shit. And like I said, I love how raw his beats are. Like they're cold, man. He sends me some and he'll send them like in spurts, and it's just like, holy shit. Like all of a sudden my phone's getting blown up and I'm getting these spurts. Yeah, but yeah, man. And I don't know. Shout out to Scully, man. He's like been spending the summer planting trees, and
For
he's an
real.
amazing dude, yo. Yeah, for real, man. I've been fucking, and then Naiyo's been down here. Naiyo came down when he performed with me at the Blue and Exile show around the same time we were working on some tracks on this and then on the WCFR project. But yeah, man, Scully's been spending a good amount of, if not all the summer planting trees. I think he's in, where is he, Alberta? At one point he was in Alberta. I don't know where he's at now, but yeah, crazy.
What I really remember, and I really hope I have this correct. Please correct me if I'm wrong, and it's a whole other person. Is I believe it was Nio that crashed at your house for a bit, and he was just making beats the entire
Dude,
time.
that's what I'm saying. I was saying that he's one of the hardest working dudes I know, man. Like truly, like I would go to bed. It would be like, yo, we would be staying up until like 2, 3 a.m. or whatever, fucking making tracks. And I'd go to bed and I'd have to work the next day. I'd come down to like, I don't know, 7:30 to go shower. And bro would still be up making beats. And he's like, when he gets tapped in, he's in a whole his own, man. Like he's one of the hardest working dudes I know. That's why his
That
output's so crazy. Like you should check his Bandcamp. Is just the pure amount of beat tapes he has on there. Like he just cooks, man. Like he's prolific.
you cannot, and you cannot replicate unauthentic passion, because when somebody is so passionate about something, they will spend every single breathing moment creating. Like whether it's
Yeah.
creating music, it's creating art, it's thinking of things you want to do with others. Like Nio, for example, like I know firsthand from you sending me beats, sending me snippets, sending me masters, where you're like, yeah, this is another one from Nio, this is another one from Nio. And just to know that this man's out here and he just has this ear for sound, but he also knows how to, like, I guess, formulate it so it comes out with these really nice beat tapes. It comes out with really nice MCs on it. He is truly such, I guess, a gem just to have as not even a collaborator as an artist, but as a friend too, because someone that's very passionate about what they can do definitely rubs off on the person beside them, because you want to also be as much of a go-getter as that person, because they're very inspired by, including Nio, who have really been some of the people in your circle over time, like even such as Palm Reader and Steve Dave, that have been really like influential and inspiring on your journey.
Wow. That's another really thoughtful question. Because yeah, I'm amazed by like going back to Nio is the fact that he just, of course, he's one of those people. He's constantly working, constantly making beats, and I really value his friendship and and our musical uh, connection that we have too. And the beats that he makes are immediately, usually, always shit that I want to rap on immediately. He's like, yo,
Yes,
I got this joint for
yes.
you. Like, all right, bet. And I always feel like I in my bag when I'm making music with him, because yeah, I feel like it does rub off on you, and you're so right when you say that. And that's part of the beauty of collaborating. And that's something that it's actually hard to replicate that when you're alone. And I think that's truly goes back to jazz music, um, and just, session musicians coming together and creating like these unbelievable works, man. Like, you know what I mean? And you can't really replicate that feeling of being with people and making shit.
How
And you can't replicate that feeling.
how has it been? I guess from your perspective, knowing that you've created such. I use the word persona, but I don't want to use it as in like the one for one definition. But you've really created your own sound that it's a lot easier for you now to say, "Yo, I want to rap on that. Like, I want that beat to be mine," versus like
Mm.
endlessly searching on BeatStars for something that slightly is matching what you want.
Ooh, that's, you know, first off, before I say that though, I just want to say that I had I wanted to go back before to what you said asked before about the people that
Yeah.
influenced me, because I felt like I didn't want to leave anybody out. Um, yeah, I would say Palm Reader is one of those dudes. He's always switching up his style, doing different things that is really inspiring. All the people I meet through the FTI community as well, like Average James, all the local bands that are doing their thing. Like there's a lot of people at that level, of course, but there's people within the industry too that were like one of the recent guys that's gone on yet another insane run, the God Fahim, like people like Makami. Like, of course, there's people that I could point to all in those realms, but I think it's always good to look to your friends and the people that are closer than your circle first before you get influence from those people. So to find people that have a similar style to you and get that and channel into their love of the craft and their passion, that's the best thing that you could possibly do. And that's what I feel like I've been fortunate enough with the people I've worked with that I've had the ability to do that. But in terms of the other thing about rapping within the style of beats and getting comfortable within a certain style, I think that was the biggest challenge at first for pretty much every rapper, because I think that part of rap too that is so fundamental that people often overlook at first is beat choice and what your ear for beats are, because that really does dictate to a great extent of who you're going to listen to. Because like some people might not be feeling the drumless sound, and that's fine, because some people really love drums and love heavy bass, or they love 808s, and that's just their personal preference. Art's subjective, so I wouldn't feel any sort of disrespect at all if someone came with that opinion. But at the same time, I think that that's the style in which that I gravitate towards, because that's what I listen to.
Yes.
And so, being comfortable with and understanding what you love, I think it really influences everything. It's really like, because if you don't have good influences, then why are you even making music? If you have surface level influences, if you just are influenced by, if you claim to be influenced by nobody, then your music's just going to be completely tasteless. And you're gonna have, because I'm always amazed, especially within hip hop. A lot of people say, "Well, I don't listen to anybody; I just listen to myself." And I get it. You have to have a level of confidence. You have to have a degree of cockiness that you come in and say, "Well, I'm confident in what I do." That's fair, but I mean, I don't think a writer comes and says, "Well, I just wrote this book," but honestly, I don't read books.
I don't read any books.
No interest and I have no interest. It's like, well, great. I'm going to assume that your shit's complete garbage, because you don't have any kind of basis or love for it, because you have to have that.
Exactly.
If you
Agreed.
don't, then I mean, you don't. I mean, people have proven you don't, because people have been driven by other things. It's not always just like artistic expression and connecting with what you love and trying to contribute to something that's greater than you. It's not always like that. Obviously, there's selfish people have selfish intents, which is hilarious, because it's music isn't really where you're going to get rich. So it's amazing to me that all these people are like, well, I'm just going to get into it.
Yeah.
Like Zappa said, they're only in it for the money. We're only in it for the money.
You can really pick out in a crowd who's authentically passionate about it and who's trying to replicate a trend. Something that you've done a handful of times, and something that you've honestly kind of like Average James switched up the experience rather than listening to it on a vinyl, listening to it on streaming, is the way you take on the stage when you're performing. I remember when I was doing the relaunch preparation, there was 3 slots being you, Hunter, Average James, and Shoop. And instantly in my head, there was no questions asked that if I were to ever do a concert, this is pre-relaunch, that Emerson Corleone would kick it off, because you have such this like gravitational pull towards you that everybody wants to focus in on what you're saying. And if you can have an audience captivated and focused in on what you're saying and who you are, you've already made the night so wonderful for not only like the FTI crew and like everybody you were working with throughout the day, but that audience is at minimum leaving with one good experience from a set that you put on. When you're planning your when you're planning your set, and a little side note to this question, Aiden here had his relaunch set done a month and a half early. When you're planning your set, what goes into that thinking, and what really, I guess, what flicks that light bulb in your head where you're like, I want to switch it up because I want to make sure I give someone something they couldn't replicate by listening on streaming.
Part of it really comes back to my love for the album format because um, being that I love collecting records, I'm also just naturally a album guy. Like people listen to music in all different ways. People just prefer to listen to individual tracks or shuffle an album or playlist, and that's cool. And I listen to tracks and all of the above that I just mentioned, but there's nothing that is really can top an album experience and listening to a cohesive bodywork, whether or an EP. That feels like it's cohesive and thematic in the way it's laid out sonically, and I think that I bring that sort of mentality to crafting a set for a show. Like I want to make sure that I can create like a unique listening experience through curating sonically, like what order the tracks will go in, what kind of energy I want to bring at what parts of the show. Like start out with the heavy hitters here and maybe bring in like a slower track here and things like that. But that really comes back to, well, how would this be laid out if it was an album? And so I try
Yes.
to lay out the set like it was like a compilation album of the tracks in a way. And that's really sort of the approach that I take to pretty much every single set, no matter how long it is.
Mhm.
Really is like, how would these tracks play out in a entertaining and enjoyable EP or album? And I think that's
I
always worked for me. I think it's always been a successful approach.
I think what's really awesome too is us focusing on the relaunch for a second was you really gave like a bunch of like samplers to people who've never heard you perform before, never listened to your music. And
Mm.
a lot of the songs were spread out across your different projects. So it didn't really make people go in and tune into one thing that you had available on streaming. It really kind of gave you like the eras of Emerson Corleone in one 30-minute set, which is really hard to do because when you release more music, you tend to forget what drove you to create that song 3 years ago, 4 years ago. And maybe sometimes even the lyrics go missing too because you're like, I'm so focused on what's going on now. Like, do I remember how to perform that? Do I remember the mood I had for that song? And
Mm.
my uncle Fran, like, I think at this point I need to pay him royalties for the amount of times I talk about him on this podcast. Was he was so amazed that he thought Hunter, for instance, was brought in from Toronto, but he also thought
Let's
that like
go.
you and Derek were like hired to like promote the FTI community, and it was really crazy. When I was like, no, like these are like my
Damn.
closest friends. Like I said it at the very beginning. I'm like, I've tricked everybody. Like you've come to listen to three of my closest friends perform and do what they want to do. And
Hmm.
I think the coolest photo, and it's right above me, is actually I'm going to show it to the community, and I really hope it comes off. Is that
Oh, yeah.
there's one photo that is very synonymous with FTIs that's come back, and that is this photo. If it wants to focus, now I feel like a
Oh,
YouTuber.
let's go, man. Yeah, I have my copy
Woo!
upstairs too. It's on my cherish. So
I
no, I
will
was
put.
honored, completely honored, and baffled by that. Still am baffled by that.
I think it's just like one of those photos, and you and I have talked about it quite a bit. It really captures everything FTI is. It's a performance community. It's a
Yes,
visual
sir.
art community, but it's also just like an expressive community. And being a very expressive community, everybody in there, especially that has been a part of the In Your Studio podcast so far, always has such a unique answer to what I'm about to ask next, and that is the theme of vulnerability. I know you've known about the topic before too, because we've had great discussion, very open about how we're feeling as people and then how we're feeling as artists. When you're
Absolutely.
creating, it can be even from an Aiden perspective too. How does vulnerability play a factor into how you approach and not only your craft, but making sure it's authentically you when you're creating?
Mm. I think that naturally, any artist is going to be vulnerable to an extent, especially because you have to be vulnerable enough to even put out your music from the beginning. Because I listened to a recent interview with one of my favorite artists, Billy Woods, and he's like, if you're gonna put out music, don't be upset if someone critiques it. And it's like,
Yes.
I'm kind of just paraphrasing him, but I'm like, that's really is so true. Is that you have to be vulnerable enough to even put out your music. So I think that alone is an obstacle that myself and everybody that makes music has to overcome at the beginning stages. And there's always going to be, no matter what stage you're at, you're going to feel some degree of hesitancy. At least I do. At least I do. I feel a degree of hesitancy to release things. And then I realize, well, now this is what I love to do, and I'm gonna do it, and I don't really give a shit how people perceive it. And if they like it, they like it. If they don't, they don't. It's all subjective, and I'm not going to be offended. And it's all, my music's do-it-yourself style. I don't have a lot of resources. We record everything. I get the homies to mix and master it. Shout out to Glenn Ed, my buddy out in Nova Scotia, who mixed and mastered the project. Incredibly talented dude. But like, it's all do-it-yourself. It's not. It's and so I feel like putting it out alone is a sign of vulnerability and overcoming that. But I also think that even if you're rapping within a persona, or if you're presenting a character, doing anything, you have to have some degree of vulnerability within your lyrics. If you don't, then you lose an aspect of a very human aspect that your music should have.
Mhm.
And I feel like I struggle with that because I get in super confident bags, and sometimes I'm braggadocious, and sometimes I'm this or that, or I talk about different things. But even I struggle with talking about things that I personally have issues with. I feel like in certain songs I had a much easier time doing that, but I find even as time goes on, I have a harder time doing that. But I sprinkle it in. I sprinkle it in. I don't have whole tracks dedicated to those themes, but I always will sprinkle in some sort of aspect of my personal life or how I'm feeling within the music. But it's something that I'm going to continuously have to overcome and struggle. So I think that alone is an aspect of vulnerability. I think a lot of people that make music would relate to that. Um, yeah,
I
100%.
what I really appreciated about how Hunter said it, and you kind of like loosely said it there too, was just like when you release something, it's definitely now just up to the listener or the viewer to perceive it in their own way, because they could have the message entirely wrong, or they could have
Hmm.
it entirely right, and really neither one of their, unless it's malicious, of course, neither one of their opinions are wrong because it's art that you're showcasing and you're sharing with somebody. So with you sprinkling like a little bit of your real life in there, maybe that's what they take away and they put themselves in those shoes. They don't even think that
Hmm.
it could they don't even think it could be you. They could just think like, wow, like he's really connected to who I am at the moment. And something I read online the other week was just like it was one of those like meme posts because like you have all these people who think they know like artist hacks on how to like fast track your career. And it was just
Hmm.
like what to do once you share art, scroll for the biggest secret they don't want you to know, and it scrolled and it said turn your phone off. And I was just like, yes. Like don't worry at all because you're overcoming what you wanted to release. You've released
Yeah,
it and now just let it live with other people as opposed to being over critical of something you worked so hard on creating. And I
I
think that's
agree.
so beautiful.
I completely
Um
agree. And I think that's so true. And you also have to ask yourself a couple of difficult questions, which is who are you trying to impress? And B, who are you worried about?
yes.
Because, um, number one, obviously, the ideal answer would be, well, I'm not really trying to impress anybody. I'm just kind of trying to do it for myself. But of course, it's nice to impress people. You want to be like, okay, I hope people, especially if you're a rapper, like, oh, hopefully people think I'm nice or I'm decent in what I do. But you also have to realize, well, you have to try to strive for not trying to impress people, obviously, and not really trying to spew kind of like basic information here. But really, that's the number one thing is don't try to go out of your way to impress everybody because who are you trying to impress and who do you really care about critiquing it? Because at the end of the day, even the people that you love the most might not enjoy the music you make because music is
Yep.
so subjective. It's such a subjective art. It's truly next to comedy, it's the most subjective art form, obviously, and it's like taste will vary. And um, an easy analogy and a simple analogy is that I always think about is there are albums that have completely changed my life that have had unbelievable, enormous impact on my life that people would think is utter garbage.
Yes.
And
Yes.
that's, I think, the thing that I always remind myself is that, like, there's records that I listen to every day that I'm like I said, that they've had infinite replay value, and the influence and depth to them is astonishing to me. But if I showed it to even someone in my life, they might be completely underwhelmed by it.
Yes.
And and to that degree, it's like, that's the case with music that's so impactful to you, then it's certainly the case with your music too.
These final three questions for you are the funniest of the three because it's always put such a on people. I know you can list an encyclopedia of people when I'm about to ask you these three questions. Number one, not limited to one medium. Put the FTI community on to some new things to check out, whether it be music you're listening to, films you're watching, books you're reading. Doesn't have to be independent. It can be anywhere in the world.
Oh man, you know that. Ooh, that's okay. That's a hard question, man. That's a difficult question. Oh shit, sorry. That's a difficult question, man. I guess really, I guess I could go over some things that I've been enjoying recently. Um, yeah, like what are some really good movies that I watched recently? I watched a really good movie last night called Miller's Crossing. That was really excellent. It's a Coen Brothers movie. Really sick. I've been really enjoying the new Billy Woods album, Gollywog, which I don't know if I'm supposed to say because it is kind of, anyway. It's a controversial word, but it's that name of the album. But really amazing album. That's probably my album of the year. I can't get enough of that record. It's unbelievable, dude. And it's a good listen for the fall, but it's already out. Obviously, that album has just been on repeat constantly. I've been really enjoying. I mentioned him before, the God Fahim's like run. He's been on a prolific run. Been enjoying music from a couple really cool guys, Vega Seven, the Ronin, Fagerson, a couple really cool rappers. Outside of hip hop, been listening to a lot of Donald Byrd. Just saw The Roots.
Yes, you did.
Oh man, holy shit! One of the best shows, top three shows I've ever been to. Holy fuck. Incredible. Oh yeah, Jay Dilla, of course. I'm wearing the Dilla hat. Came from the Detroit Pistons game. I told my mom and her partner Ray go to the Detroit Pistons games, and I was like, if you ever see Jay Dilla merch, because sometimes they do like Jay Dilla merch. Let me know. I'll transfer you. And she's like, yeah, they have this hat. You want this hat? Oh shit.
Sent.
Yeah. So yeah, man. Jay Dilla is a huge influence. And then some artists that are really important to me, just in the music that I make. Rock Marciano, my favorite rapper of all time and one of my favorite producers. Truly the godfather of everything that is going on in the underground right now in terms of like the drumless scene. The GOAT, truly. I met him briefly at a show, got some records signed. Fucking dope, dude.
Oh yeah.
And truly my favorite rapper in every regard. Like number one. Obviously MF Doom too, the late MF Doom, the late great MF Doom, all caps, legend, absolute. My number, him and Rock are my two favorite, because like MF Doom realistically is also like shares that same level of like impact that he's had. And then I mentioned Ka before, Brownsville Ka
Mhm.
too. I can't stress enough how important that man's music is, and how much you should take the time to check it out, because he is a generational talent to me. And yeah, he was one of those artists that when he passed, it was truly like I don't often feel truly connected to an artist in that way, and to the point where I truly like feel devastated when they pass. But I feel like all of us have those artists that we really love. I know a lot of people felt that way about Mac Miller. I was really saddened by Mac Miller's death too. Like, but I know people really feel like, when you grow with an artist and you love an artist's music and you connect with them so much, when they pass, it's really, really a blow to you.
Agreed.
Whether or not you knew them as a person, obviously we don't know these people, but like we feel so connected to what they've created. So it's but to different degrees, And when Ka passed, that was very sad because he's an artist that I really look up to. So yeah, Brownsville Ka, uh, um, Prodigy too, another MC that passed away. A lot of these guys passed away, unfortunately. Fuck, it sucks. Prodigy and Mobb Deep, one of my favorite rappers, Guru from Gangstar, Ghostface from the Wu Tang. Wu Tang, obviously, I talked about them before. Wu Tang's forever. Yeah. Um, and then some of the bands that have influenced me, Pavement, the Replacements, my all-time favorite rock band, Lemonheads, Led Zeppelin, shit like that. The
What I
Cure, Joy Division.
Something
Just
I
think of
don't
the
think
fucking.
people tune into, and honestly, I bet a lot of people know this already. For the people who know you, whether it's like within like a week, a year, or even your whole life, it's just how
Mm,
well versed you are in every aspect of almost every realm of music, and almost like pop culture too, because like you're really tuned in to so many different genres of music, genres of film. Like you absolutely have a love for just overall art instead of just really focused in on one specific I guess lane. This next one, I'm gonna actually limit you to, let's say, two, because if I did one, it would be really torturous. The first one, the first one, my friend, name an independent artist and collective in your circle that when this podcast is done and your creator of the week is wrapped up, you're like, hey, you got to go check out this person, but you can name two.
wow, and they're on like an independent level.
Yeah, like it can even doesn't even need to be like I guess like worldwide famous, but like somebody where you kind of feel like they're on the come up as well.
Whoa, okay, I might need a second with that one. That one's tricky because there's a lot of people that like I've already mentioned a lot of people that I would normally mention, you
Yes,
know.
yes.
So maybe I should. Okay, wow, that's difficult.
I
And
save it
there's a
for the
lot of
end.
people. Yeah, maybe we should. Maybe we can come back to that one. That's a difficult one because if I can only pick two people, I don't know. It's gonna be hard to narrow that down.
Then you know what I'll do?
Damn.
I will let you I will let you let us know in the comment section because this third one is the absolute. That's so great. The third one is the absolute hardest. The floor is yours, my friend. My microphone's off, even though it stays on. Plug
Yeah, yeah.
yourself. Let us know what's going on in your world, especially July 11th.
Yes, sir. Well, I go by the name of Emerson Corleone. I make hip hop music. Lover of music, movies, pop culture. I got my new project coming out with my good friend Scully, an amazing producer. It's called Glorious Technicolour. It's going to be available everywhere July 11th, and I'm really excited for the project. It's about it's like a short album slash EP. But yeah, it features some really talented people. Mark Scorn from the UK, who is truly one of my favorite rappers. In fact, let's go back to one of those. Let's go back to that question. One of those
Yes.
people I want you to check out is Mark Scorn,
Yes, sir.
because my man Mark Scorn is one of the coldest rappers around. Period. I just want to say that right now. Every time I work with this guy, he goes above and beyond on his verse. He snaps. He's actually on the project twice. That's my dude. He's out in the UK. Truly one of the coldest rappers. I like coldest pens. He has such an interesting style. He has blends of horrorcore, boom bap. He brings a lot of those modern flavors within the realms that I work in, and I mentioned before, like the Rock Marcy, the West Side Guns. and he's a very poetic guy. He's just
Very
his
poetic.
wordplay is stone cold. That's really how I describe it.
His
Scornelius, man.
delivery.
Mark Scorn is truly like every time I know if I'm going to be on a track with him, I have to bring something special because he always inspires me. He's someone that inspires me, and he has a new project coming on too later this year that I'm really
Yes.
really excited for. And so I want to shout out Mark Scorn. So that was a great way to go back to your other question. So there's one of the people that I'd like to shout out. So he's actually featured on the project, and we've worked before together. Of course, I
Many of
met Mark
times.
through Magic Beats, and I feel like all this goes back to what I was saying before about the importance of networking, and that's at the heart of FTI as well, and connecting and building community. Because I met Mark through Magic Beats, because Magic Beats had a plethora of beats out, on his website, and he had a portfolio of things. But one of the things that he presented was he had a project with Mark Score, and I checked it out. It's called Silent Letters, and I was blown away when I heard that. I was like, this is insane. Because Mark's from the UK, and oftentimes I feel like when we hear UK rappers, especially in a modern context, we always think of like the grime scene
Yes.
and that kind of sound going on. Mark really like is just in a whole different lane of his own sound. Like he's developed his style and is just so sick. And I'm honored to be working with him. So shout out to Mark Scorn. That's one of the artists I'd love to shout out. And then it also features two guys that I mentioned before that are good friends of mine. My guy Naiyo, who the mastermind, and then Jess, who's also an incredible rapper too. Incredible rapper and super prolific. Like Jess also is a part of WCFR, and I witnessed this guy just writing some cold, like he'd write on the spot, which is insane. And he's working with him is insane. He's so cold. So I was really happy that he could lay down track. In fact, the song Jupiter Horizons, shout out to Nile, man, because that song was supposed to be on the WCFR album. And he very graciously allowed me to put it on this project because I pitched it, and I felt like it was kind of for me, that was kind of I felt like I was overstepping a little bit when I asked, but I was like, dude, like I really like, that was my favorite track, that one of my favorite tracks on that project. And it was produced by Scully. And I was like, yo, how do we feel about, like, I feel like if we could showcase this track on our project, because I wanted the project to grow a little bit more from this 5-track EP. And so I actually asked Nio, and for me, I felt I was a little hesitant at first, and he very graciously allowed me to do that. So shout out to Nio for allowing that. And Nio appears on the track on the album twice on 2 different tracks, and he's absolutely incredible on both verses. He has such a cool style, very abstract rapper, very cool dude, very very boundary pushing in terms of his style. So incredible rapper too, in addition to being a mind blowing producer. So
And all of that comes out on Friday, July 11th. This is such an exciting time for me personally because I get to relive the summers of Emerson Corleone now in my late 20s, which is crazy that I was in my early 20s when they started. What I
yes,
look
sir.
forward to the most about this project is how I guess I'm tuning into it. And I don't mean to sound very like, oh, I have it early compared to other people, but I'm listening when everybody listens instead of like listening to it now per se. Because I want to genuinely be on my drive to work. I genuinely want to have my headphones on my desk and just experience Emerson Corleone and crew on kind of like I guess a new light for me. So I'm looking very much forward to the album. Emerson, Aiden, my friend, thank you for allowing us to dedicate one whole week to you here. FTI community, you can find him on Instagram, Emerson Corleone, but I believe there's a few things separating Emerson Corleone. I think it's 3 underscores. Um,
Yes, sir. Emerson, 3 underscores Corleone. Yes,
yes,
sir. Yes, sir. And then, and yeah, and then for the second artist, I'd like to shout out Scully too, who produced
yes,
the project, who is a fantastic producer, and he actually dropped a beat tape earlier this year. Um, yeah, and so I highly suggest you check that out. It's super, super smooth. Great listen. And thank you so much to the FTI community. Like I said, the community is very near and dear to my heart. Shout out to everybody that is involved and everybody that I've had the pleasure of meeting along the way. Shout out to you, Matt. You're the man.
You're the man.
Obviously, one of my closest homies. And yeah, I really appreciate you allowing me to come on here, talk about the project, talk my shit, drink a couple beers. You know, maybe I got a. Did I get a little too high before this? Possibly, but
Fuck
it's all right.
We live.
It's all right, man. And it was. I had a great time chatting, man. So appreciate you.